Hi everyone, and thank you for joining me in this third session on Adobe topics. Today we will be talking about the Adobe 3-year commitment agreements and also take an overall look at the Adobe Enterprise Agreement. I will present to you as well some highlights about Adobe Stock, which is also related to the Adobe Enterprise Agreement for the commercial segment. If you have any questions along the way, please just add them in the chat. My colleagues will try to answer them as we go along. Otherwise, I will catch up in the end of this session. Our last session will be on the 14th of December, and here we will cover education and nonprofit, and also catch up on some of the topics from these last 3 sessions to make sure that you have all the knowledge that you need in order to sell these products to your customers. If you have anything, any topics, any relevant information that you think will be necessary for you, please just write them in the chat as well, because then I'll make sure to cover it in the 4th and last session in December. But let's start off with today's presentation. I will just share my screen here. Just hang on. So I hope you all see my screen and my window here with the presentation of this session number 3. So as I mentioned, we will go through the Adobe 3-year commitment agreement, how and when to use it and how to sell it to your customers. Then we'll go through the VIP Enterprise Agreement and also what we call CC Pro and the products containing Adobe Stock. And then we will cover the Adobe Stock standalone licenses as well. So a 3-year commitment agreement, it is an agreement that you can create for your customer that has a level 2, 3, or 4 agreement. So it's
Sorry,
not,
Charlotte, we can only
yeah.
see a black screen now, so it's not your presentation, it's the wrong screen.
Thank you, Jenny. I'll just go back here. Sorry, guys. So let's see if I can get this right. So this is what happened when you do something live. Isn't that how it is? So let's see here. There it is. Does this look right, Jenny?
Yes, it looks good now.
Great, because I cannot see myself, I cannot see you guys. The only thing I see is the actual presentation. So I'll just start over again. Here you have the agenda. So as I mentioned, the agenda for today is the 3-year commitment agreement, how and when to use this agreement and present it to your customers. There's also some differences between how you create this agreement with the VIP and the VIP marketplace that I will cover as well. Then we'll go into the VIP Enterprise Agreement. That will be just an overall coverage of the Adobe Enterprise Agreement, because if we have to deep dive into the Enterprise Agreement, it will take an hour or 2 to have all the technical specifications as well. Then we'll look into Adobe CC Pro, which is the CC products covering or also containing Adobe Stock, and we will look into the Adobe Stock standalone products as well. So let's try again. So as I mentioned, a 3-year commitment agreement can be created for your customer agreement that has a level 2 to level 4 price level. The commitment the customer is creating is based on the quantity of licenses that they have on the agreement. So if you have an agreement with 55 licenses, that will equals a level 13 agreement because the customer has a level 3 agreement today. This can be done for both Teams agreement and enterprise agreements. And the only threshold is that the customer has to have a minimum of 10 licenses. What is very important to remember is that this commitment is not based on the specific products that your customer has today. It is on the specific quantity. So if your customer has 50 Acrobat Pro licenses, it's not like they have to renew 50 Acrobat Pro licenses going forward. It is the total amount of licenses on the agreement. The commitment itself can be created at any time of the year, so it's not based on the actual anniversary date. So if you create an agreement with your customer, they can do it in January, they can do it in July, no matter when they have their anniversary date. But the agreement will start at the date when your customer submit to this agreement. And when you have this commitment agreement, it covers 2 renewals. And I'll show you that in the next slide, how that is counted. So the maximum of month and years that this agreement can cover is up to 3 years. So you can have an agreement that is only 2.5 years, but I'll show you on this next slide. When you do a commitment agreement, the price will be based on the price that is on the Adobe price list within that specific month. And when we are talking about these prices, it is set up on the Adobe cost price, which we are getting. So if there are any changes for the currency, there might be a slight difference between your pricing one year compared to another, but that will be based on the currency only. So sometimes it might be a good idea if you are creating quotes for your customers and you would like to showcase to them what would the actual price be this year and next year and so on. Perhaps create them in euros, because then your customer cannot argue with you when the price might change a bit. So perhaps you recall these images from the first session for you guys that were there. The one in the bottom shows the a full year of an Adobe VIP agreement. So let's say I'm creating a new agreement here and I buy 70 licenses for this specific customer. As this is between 50 and 99 licenses, the level will be level 3. Later on, the customer adds 30 licenses, and that will also be purchased within level 3. Now the customer has a total amount of 100 licenses within their agreement. 6 months in, the customer would like to create a commitment agreement. This agreement will equals level 13, as the customer has a level 3 agreement at the moment. Oh, sorry, it will be a level 14 agreement, because now the customer has 100 licenses in total when creating this commitment. They add more licenses, so when they are up for renewal, they have a total amount of licenses of 115. And at the renewal, the requirements from Adobe based on this commitment agreement is that this customer renews 100 licenses. They can, of course, renew 110 or 115 if they need that, but the minimum is 100 licenses. If your customer do not withhold this, this commitment, Adobe will lower the agreement to level 1. So the customer will receive some warnings from Adobe that they haven't renewed the total number that they have actually committed to, and therefore it will be lowered to level 1. So as mentioned, your customers with an agreement between level 2 and 4, they are eligible for this kind of an agreement. Adobe will send out emails informing customers that they can get this agreement, and they can just submit it by the email that they are receiving from Adobe. Another way for them to commit to the agreement is to go into their admin console, and within their account tab, they can agree to this agreement as well. And as I mentioned before, this 3-year commitment period isn't always 3 years. So as you saw before on the example I had, this customer actually only had half a year in the beginning of this agreement where they were covered with level 14. And that was the first renewal. So let's just, if we just for the sake of this example, so let's say this agreement was created on the 1st of January 2022. Then in 23, they will renew. That is the first renewal. And in 24, they will renew as well. And that is the second renewal. And then this agreement will run out 1 month before the anniversary date in 2025. Something that you need to be aware of if you create these commitment agreements within the renewal period. So the renewal period is 30 days before the anniversary date until 30 days after. If your customer has purchased new licenses within that period of time, those licenses actually runs out the next year, but they will be counted within the commitment. So your customer might have, let's say, 20 licenses up for renewal, but you have added 5 more licenses later within the renewal period. The commitment will count those as well as something that the customer has to renew within their commitment agreement. So this is just something to remember, and please be aware if you're creating commitment agreements at the renewal, because this is when you're actually having the discussion with your customer often. If they want to lower the threshold that they have today, so a customer that has 250 licenses and they only want to renew 150, then please inform us, and we'll try to get an acceptance from Adobe that this customer can actually create a commitment agreement with a lower amount of licenses than they actually have today. That will require an acceptance from Adobe, and they are allowed to say no, and then you'll have to just renew in level 2, 3, or 4, and then later on you can create the commitment based on the number of licenses that are actually on the agreement at that time. So if you have agreements within the VIP marketplace today, the way you will create the 3-year commitment, so now it's not actually up to the customer to take the first step, that is up to you guys to help out your customer. So you choose the Adobe commercial tenant, which is the actual Adobe agreement. Then you go down here and press the 3-year commitment button. That will give you a few suggestions here. So you have these 4 different ways of creating a 3-year commitment. So the first one is for totally new agreements that you have just created on the VIP marketplace. So it is agreements that has no licenses at all, and you want to create a commitment. So when you do this and choose enroll for 3-year new agreement, you will add the total amount of licenses that you want your customer to commit to. So if your customer wants to buy 30 licenses, you will add 30 to the marketplace, and the customer would have to accept that, and within 7 days you will need to add the order into marketplace. And the ones that I guess you'll use the most is the second one, enroll for 3-year existing agreement. That goes for existing agreements on the marketplace between level 2 and 4. So here you'll just send out an invitation as well to your customer when pressing this button, and they have to accept it, and they can either do it by the email they receive or within the admin console under the account tab. Something that you cannot do on a normal VIP agreement is to change your VIP pricing level, but you can do that within the marketplace. So if you, for instance, has a customer that has a level 12 agreement, so a commitment agreement with between 10 and 49 licenses, and now they actually bought more than 100 licenses, and they have, let's say, 150 licenses, and they would like to create a new commitment based on those licenses in order to get a higher level, in this case, level 14. Then you can choose this one, update 3-year commitment threshold. And then you're changing the whole agreement and creating a new one for the next 3 years with a new VIP level. The last one is the one to use if you have customers that has a commitment agreement and needs to renew their current agreement. It might be based on another quantity, perhaps a lower or higher quantity, and that is something you can change when you press this recommitment button. All right. So let's take an overview of Adobe Enterprise Agreement. So you guys know that there's something called VIP for Teams, and we have VIP for Enterprise. What you need to be aware of is the products are actually the same products. So it's not like a better Photoshop just because you buy it on the Enterprise Agreement. The Enterprise Agreement is for both commercial, government, and education. You can use the same ID as you have on a Teams agreement called Adobe ID. But what you also can use on the Enterprise Agreement is the Enterprise ID and the Federated ID. And that is actually the main difference between having a Teams agreement and an Enterprise Agreement. In my opinion, it wouldn't make sense to create an Enterprise Agreement and keep going with the Adobe ID. Then you don't get all the features and services from Adobe having an Enterprise Agreement. The main reason, in my experience, that our customers are choosing an Enterprise Agreement is the Adobe Sync tool. The Adobe Sync tool is used to synchronize your user between your admin console or their admin console and their Active Directory. And a second reason why they choose the Enterprise Agreement is single sign-on. So if customers are using single sign-on today, they would need to use Federated ID. I don't think that I've created any Enterprise agreements without customers choosing the Federated ID. It's not like there's any limit to when you can create an Enterprise agreement. You can create an Enterprise agreement with 5 licenses or 100 or 1,000. It doesn't matter. But mainly it's for larger companies. But in my opinion, you can start off with 50 licenses or more. But of course, if you have customers, you might have a larger company that doesn't use that many Adobe licenses, but they would like Enterprise because they would like a higher level of security. Then they should go with the Enterprise agreement, even though the Enterprise agreement is a bit more expensive than the Teams version. So with the Adobe Sync tool, with the single sign-on, it all saves time for the IT department. And in the end, we know that time is money. So in the end, a lot of customers are actually saving money, even though it has a bit more cost than they are used to with the Teams agreement. So I've highlighted here with a few short slides, not to make it too confusing, because there are so many specifics and so many technical information concerning the Enterprise agreement. So I'm trying to do it on another level here, because I know that we have different people here on board. So some of the reasons or some of the differences between a Teams agreement and the enterprise agreement. First of all, it's the admin roles. On a Teams agreement, the only admin role that you can choose is the system administrator. A system administrator will have access to everything. They can add users, they can add products, they can see everything. With an enterprise agreement, you can delegate your responsibility within your IT department, making sure that some are into the product packaging and some takes care of the deployment, some is setting up the Active Directory and so on. We have 6 different user admins in the enterprise agreement. Then there's also more control with the enterprise agreement. So if there are services that the users aren't allowed to access to, IT can control it by specific user or specific user groups as well. All right. Then Adobe is using a dedicated encryption key to ensure that all cloud content are secured. And your admin, within the admin console, it also allows admins to view logs of all uploaded content, as well as restrict the ability of the end users to share content with outside the company. It is possible for a company to add an extra layer of control simply by enabling a dedicated encryption key for some or all the domains that they have within their company as well. This is, of course, of a certain technical level. We have the security white paper from Adobe, and I will encourage you to share that with your customers if they wish to go with an enterprise agreement, because they know how to, or they will need to know how to set it up. What is also important to mention is when you create an enterprise agreement with your customers, they will receive an invite directly from Adobe for an invitation to go through their the whole enterprise agreement and the setup. So Adobe will make sure that they are onboarded correctly and they get the help that they need. And especially the support is actually something worth remembering when handling enterprise agreements. It's not like we get the best feedback from customers handling Adobe support on the Teams agreement, but the technical support and the enterprise support that customer gets from an enterprise agreement is somewhat different. So both technical support, but they have also access to expert services. Expert services is actually for the end user. So if they need some support with a specific products, they can actually get help with this agreement as well. I think they have only, it says here on the slide, they have 2 sessions per user on the expert services on a Teams agreement, and it is unlimited on the enterprise agreement. All right. So the reason why I have combined the enterprise agreement with some information around Adobe Stock is because when you create an Adobe VIP agreement or enterprise agreement, your customer has to have CC Pro. And this goes for VIP only. So it doesn't go for marketplace. If you have marketplace agreements and your customer wishes to go to an enterprise agreement, they do not have to buy CC Pro. But it's a normal VIP agreement, they have to purchase Pro. We will look into this later on in this presentation. So what is Adobe Stock? I hope most of you know what Adobe Stock is. It's a huge library of different assets from Adobe going from different images to graphics to design templates, 3Ds, and also video and music. It has more than 700,000 contributors around the world. This could be you and me contributing. If we were taking pictures, we could add them and upload them for others to use. What is very important to mention is that these are royalty-free assets. So your customers are allowed to use them if they have a license. So no one, or hopefully everybody knows that you cannot or allowed to just copy a picture from the internet and use it. You might come into trouble doing that. What it also has is advanced search with Adobe Sensei. So if you are, for instance, within Photoshop and you wish to find a photo of a beach or whatnot, you can just search for a beach and it finds some different images for you. So Adobe Sensei, you might recall the last session, we went through Firefly, which is Adobe AI products, or the newest one. Adobe Sensei is actually the older Adobe AI product that is within Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator, and so on, where you can actually search for these images that you need. Adobe will also be a trusted service provider in this case because the customer are actually using the products, but now they also linked to a specific base where they have all this content that they can use and are allowed to use. So there is an direct integration between the products and this stock library. So the first Adobe stock products that Adobe launched some years ago was Adobe Stock for Teams. This is still available, and they have 3 different or 4 different products here. They have a small other, I don't know why it's not called medium, and then they have a large one. They also have a Creative Cloud Team All Apps, including stock. But what is worth to remember here is that this stock small and other with both 10 and 40 assets per month is there are including a rollover, which means that you have 10 assets per month that your whole team can use. If they do not use all 10 of them, the rest will roll over to the next month. So if I'm only using 8 this month, then 2 will be added to the next one, and then I have 12. And this will continue until the anniversary date. So these products are purchased just like Photoshop and Acrobat and all other products where they are purchased for the number of months until the anniversary date. The large one with 150 assets, there are no rollover. You get 750 assets or access to license 750 assets per month. So when you're using these assets, as I mentioned, this is integrated into Photoshop and other products as well. If you search an image, you can actually try it out. It will just have a watermark on it. So you can try and see how this image works with the presentation or the flyer that I'm creating. And if it doesn't match, I can just switch and create a new one. And it won't be licensed before I press the button that I need to license this, and then it will count with the assets, with the number of assets that I have on my license. As you see, we also have Creative Cloud for Teams, all apps with stock. So what this is just the full Creative Cloud all apps package, including a small stock with 10 assets per month. So what is included in these stock for Teams? This is the stock or the Adobe standard assets. And you are allowed to print a maximum of 500,000. You are not allowed to sell it. So you're not allowed to take a picture and put it on a mug and then sell it, or a t-shirt for that matter. That's not allowed with this type of license. You can use it online and that has no limit to it. The terms and conditions for Adobe Stock is so many pages, and I would recommend that your customers using stock photos today just to read through them to make sure that they are also following the terms and conditions from Adobe. Then the newest thing I think we have is the Adobe Stock Credit Packs. And Credit Packs is for both teams and enterprise agreements. You see here how many credits that you can purchase on a Teams agreement and how many you can buy on the enterprise agreement. So credits is the payment of each asset that you want to download. So it has different pricing, and these are called credits. What is different from other products on the VIP agreement is that there's no proration when it comes to credit packs. It is always a 12-month payment. So it will not end at the anniversary date. So if you're buying stock credits today, it will be 12 months. If you buy it next month, it will also be 12 months. So it will have different end dates when you're buying credit packs. When you have credit packs, you are not just allowed to download Adobe standard assets, but you will also be able to license enhanced assets and also extended assets. And here you see that with the enhanced license, you can actually print more than 500,000. And with the extended one, you are also allowed to actually use the assets on a t-shirt, on a mug, and to make it for resale or distribution. And these are very highlighted information that you get here. It's the most important ones, I think. But the list is long with the terms and conditions from Adobe. So I will also always ensure to share them when selling Adobe stock. It is not up to you to withhold the terms and conditions from Adobe. It's actually up to the end customer, but we can just as well help them along the way. And now to Adobe CC Pro, as I mentioned. So CC Pro is the Adobe Creative Cloud products, including Acrobat Pro with the access to standard content. This is available to both Teams and Enterprise. So here we are talking about the Creative Cloud All Apps, including including stock. It is Photoshop CC Pro, including stock, and so on. So it's all the single apps and it's the full app where your end customer will have access to download standard content from Adobe. And this is unlimited. So it's not like they only have 10 per month or 750 per month. It's unlimited. They can download as many pictures or whatever they need from the Adobe Stock library. There is a requirement for commercial enterprise customers on the VIP program. They will have to buy CC Pro versions. So if you have customers today with an enterprise agreement, next time they are up for renewal, they will have to convert those products until a Pro version. Unless you migrate the agreement to VIP Marketplace, then they do not have this requirement from Adobe. What we also have is an intro offer that's from Adobe, of course. It's not from us. So for customers that would like to try out CC Pro, you can convert the CC licenses at the renewal to CC Pro, and they will have this intro price within the first year of this agreement. If they like it, they can of course continue with CC Pro going forward at a higher price, or they can just move back to the Teams agreement with normal CC licenses. Just be aware that every time you change a product, it has a different SKU. You also have to move the specific end user. That was actually what I had for today. I will just see if any of you guys have asked any question within the chat. And let's see here. I'll start from the beginning. Perhaps most of it is about my screen being black. And the recordings, yes, the recordings will be shared, and I will of course also share the presentations, and of course, as I mentioned, also the security white paper on enterprise and other content that we find relevant for you guys to share with your end customers. And I see Jenny has actually shared the recordings with the sessions with you guys, so you'll actually find the link to this within the chat. Great. And if they have a picture, this is related to a stock. If they have used a picture and licensed it, and they don't want to renew the licenses, they are still allowed to use this picture. They license it. It is theirs to use. No problem. And yes, with the rollover, there's also a rollover if you have a Creative Cloud for Teams with 10 assets as well. Those will also be rollover until the next anniversary date. Any more questions from you guys? I see that this didn't take as long as the other two sessions, so if you have anything, feel free to ask them now. I'll just give you a minute. Otherwise, I think I will just let you enjoy the rest of this Monday. As I mentioned in the beginning of the session, you are more than welcome to add any topics, any thing that you find relevant or information that you need or clarification on specific areas. Please share them in the chat as well, because then we can go through them in December session. I don't get any news in here. Can I see that anyone is writing? I think we'll just end this session for today. And then you know where to find us. If you have any questions or need more information, feel free to reach out to your team. And hope you all have a nice Monday. Bye-bye, guys.